Nazi ain't got no humanity. They're the foot soldiers of a Jew-hating, mass-murdering maniac, and they need to be destroyed.
I was a kid. One day I stumbled upon a videotape. And this videotape just happened to include an old World War II propaganda cartoon about how taxes defeat the Axis. This completely set off my obsession with World War II and how fascism came to be, because I couldn't believe something so crazy. I couldn't believe that so many people could believe in something so horrible and so evil. And I just had to know how it was possible that people actually fell for this. It was like I'd always grown up in Christian nationalism, but I never known really what it was. It was just as normal as anything, really. And it was... You don't know that it's the wrong thing to do and the wrong way to be until you actually get exposed to a different sort of life, a different environment, different people now. But looking back on it, I realize how easy it was to make happen. I would watch these World War II propaganda cartoons and be like, right, we did the right thing. There's no possible way that any of this could ever be in America. There's so many people that are happy to see the Fourth Reich come about. The cruelty is the point.
Taxes to bury the Axis.
Leonard Skinner did a song called Sweet Home Alabama. And there's a line that says, in Birmingham, they love the governor. Now, a lot of people tend to think this is just basic Americana because they've heard it so many times. But if you really, really, really boil it down and knowing about the history of the South, especially Jim Crow, then all of a sudden the song, it hits in a different way that you'd never really be expecting.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
When I hear George Wallace, I just hear people that are scared of progress, scared of a world that doesn't cater strictly to old, rich white men. And fear and cowardice, it's just, they go hand in hand. And I'm always reminded me of that scene in Mississippi Burning with Gene Hackman, where he's sitting in the hotel room with Willem Dafoe, and he describes why his father is the way he was. He just said, in the end, that what he really knew was that his daddy, he was just ashamed because he was poor.
My daddy's face. And I knew he'd done it. And he saw that I knew. He was ashamed. I guess he was ashamed. He looked at me and he said, if you ain't any better than a nigger, son, who are you better than?
Which leads us to the one immutable truth. Bigots are cowards. Lee Atwater was one of the chief engineers of the Southern Strategy. And the Southern Strategy was used in order to do a basic party switch involuntarily. They didn't know that. What they basically did was made it so that the Dixiecrats would vote for Republican policies, thus hurting minorities and ensuring that there was a narrative spun eventually so that the Southern Strategy didn't exist. But Lee Atwater's right here to ensure that we set the record straight.
I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this, all right, I won't do it. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger. You know?
There was a series that came out in the 1980s about the Holocaust, literally called Holocaust. Fantastic series. I definitely recommend watching it. But there was one scene that always stuck out to me. It was when they finally tell the truth that anti-Semitism is just politically convenient lies.
Do the Jews serve a purpose?
Purpose?
Tell me, Dorf, how much is conviction and how much opportunism?
I'm no psychologist, sir.
Do I believe the Jews have to be removed from society? Of course. But supposing this racial stuff were nonsense. Jews have intermarried with Aryans for centuries.
Then why are we so adamant on eliminating Jews?
The practical side. Anti-Semitism is the cement that binds us together. Christians may disagree on a number of things, but as men of conscience, they can unite in their hatred of Jews.
Yes, but haven't the Jews earned that hatred?
Of course. Christ killers, well poisoners, agents of Satan, murderers of Christian children. Well, Himmler might believe that garbage, but you and I know it's medieval crap. Lies, but politically useful lies.
Men and women at ICE put themselves on the harm's way every day. And people need to remember this. They're not Nazis, they're not racists. They're mothers and fathers too. Yep. They're enforcing the laws enacted by Congress. They're not making this up.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Charge you to send me before long an overall plan concerning the organizational, factual, and material measures necessary for the desired solution of the Jewish question. Is that an accurate translation of what is written in this order from you to Heydrich and Himmler?
That had to do with immigration and evacuation.
Then Pam Bondi sues him. We take him to court. But he's not going to get away. You know, we have to sit outside that jail every day, 24/7. We'll get our hands on him because New York City or any other sanctuary city is not going to stop ICE from keeping President Trump's promise to eradicate every criminal illegal alien, every public threat illegal alien, every national threat illegal alien from this country.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
And for some reason, we have this too.
Oh, you believe God is white? First of all, white man, let me say that I love you, honor you, envy you, enjoy your smell, and I celebrate you in the name of white Jesus.
You are a token. You are in conservative media as a black guy that can confer upon white people the dignity of not being called a racist for having their views.
You say something so controversial yet so brave.
Now, I'd always known that bigotry was kind of a thing. Even from my youngest age, I just always wondered why people didn't like people that weren't like them. I was offered no explanation, unfortunately. It was just, that's just the way things were. And I'm fairly certain that my great-grandfather and great-grandmother went and saw Charles Coughlin preach when he was in Cleveland, Ohio, because I am from Ohio. But the more that I dug into the history of Charles Coughlin, the more that I started to realize that there was always a Nazi faction in America. It was the German Bund. And the sympathies were already there. I couldn't believe it, but people actually brought back Nazi sympathies from World War II. I know the America First Party was very pro-Nazi sympathizing party. Charles Lindbergh was one of their biggest advocates. And I know that There was a lot of people that went and fought after Pearl Harbor. And I know there was a lot of people that fought in Germany, but I never thought that there were people that would take the beliefs with them over there and then fight and then come back and still have the same thing. I never would have thought that after seeing your friends die and seeing what that ideology did, you'd want to bring that home to America?
We assume that democracy is something that all Americans embrace. But in the 1930s, there were people in the United States who were ready to try something different.
But it wasn't normal. It was Nazi camp.
And call yourself pro-American and wrap yourself in Bible drag and the flag. I don't understand. America, did you not learn when you were over there? Once I learned about Roy Conn, so much made sense to me about Donald Trump, especially the way that he handled the media, especially when he handled the media that criticized him. Whether he was on the campaign trail or he was actually president, the more that you learn about Roy Conn, the more that not only does Donald Trump's personality make sense, but also the entire right-wing argumentative narrative that they use. Fox News mainlined Roy Conn into America's veins.
The federal government sued Donald and Fred by name and their company for racial bias. This was one of the greatest racial bias cases of its time.
This was a particularly egregious case because the Trump organization had allegedly put large C's to connote people of color who were applying for apartments.
The government had him nailed. They had the Trump organization nailed. There were multiple Trump employees who confessed that they had been instructed to divert black applicants for apartments, to discourage them, to tell them that apartments had been rented when they hadn't been.
Donald Trump's regular lawyers tell him, settle it, just move on, do the right thing, do what you're supposed to do under the law. And Trump's not happy with that advice.
He wanted to fight back. He went looking for a new lawyer in Manhattan.
One of the places to see and be seen in Manhattan was called Le Club. Donald Trump walked in, and Roy Conn was there holding court, as he often did. And Trump said, you know, I know about you. Can I ask you a question?
Roy Conn had 20 years of being a really aggressive, no holds barred, go for the jugular, fight back. Anybody says something to you, throw it back at them guy. He was famous for that behavior.
And as legend has it, Donald stuck out his hand and introduced himself and said, my father is being sued by the Justice Department over this race discrimination. What should we do?
And he said, listen, I've spent 2 days with these establishment law firms about a case we have. It was a civil rights case or something, and they were all telling us, give up, do this, sign a decree, and all of that. He says, I followed your career, and you're a little bit crazy like I am, and you stand up to the establishment. Can I come see you? And I said, sure.
When they met, Roy said to him, you might be guilty, it doesn't matter. Go after the Justice Department. Don't ever admit guilt.
Fight it. You'll kill them. Just deny everything and fight. And Trump was totally taken by that, and he hired Roy Conn as his lawyer.
That was a defining moment for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was on the ropes There was no doubt they had discriminated. There's no doubt there was wrongdoing. And yet, Roy Conn showed him that you can turn around a situation just by ignoring the facts and going after your attacker. Trump countersued the Justice Department for $100 million.
I have never, nor has anyone in our organization ever, to the best of my knowledge, discriminated or shown bias in renting our apartments.
This is a classic example of where Trump begins to demonstrate something he talks about all the time today, which is he's a counterpuncher. So somebody comes out after him and says that he's done something nefarious and horrible, and he just goes back at them with all guns blazing. You know, boom, boom, boom. And admits nothing, never admit anything, never say you made a mistake, just keep coming.
His countersuit didn't work, and in fact, he did end up quietly settling out of court. But Roy went on the offensive and said, this is a victory. Trump was vindicated. He knew before anybody else did that the court of public opinion is often more important than a court of law. The lesson from Roy Conn was, don't go the way the establishment does. Don't play by the rules.
Donald Trump learned a lot of things from Roy Conn, but I think that you could kind of sum it up by saying that bullying works really well. If you punch back, most people withdraw and just look at what you can get away with.
For Donald Trump, Roy Cohn's playbook would become a guide to life, business, and politics.
A witch hunt, a horrible, horrible, disgusting witch hunt. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Conn's approach to life that he conveys to Trump is you fight back, and you fight dirty if you have to. Trump articulates this.
And we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
If somebody attacks him, he attacks them back, he says, 10 times as hard. He's not about diplomacy, he's not about negotiation, he is all about the fight.
One of my favorite examples will always be during the debate when Donald Trump said he had no idea what Project 2025 was. Roy Conn 101 on full display. And then right after the election, Matt Walsh just blows it right up, almost celebrating the fact that they lied to get power.
As you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody.
It's obvious to see why they lied to get power.
I just want everyone to know that there's official Alligator Alcatraz merch. There it is, provided to us by the state of Florida. Incredible. And yeah, would you rock this drip? Look at that.
Did everyone have a good weekend? Good. It's good to see you back here. We have another busy week. On a scheduling note, tomorrow, President Trump will travel to the great state of Florida to attend the opening of a new illegal alien detention center located at Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport alongside Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congressman Byron Donalds, and other state and local leaders. We hope to see many of you there. The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens. This is an efficient and low-cost way to help carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history.
I'll never forget seeing the Frank Zappa clip. Obviously, I didn't see it when it first aired, but when I first saw it, and he described that America was headed right down the pipe of a fascist theocracy. And everybody said, "Oh, Mr. Zappa, you're so blowing everything out of proportion." And his words were literal prophecy. He couldn't have been more like Nostradamus if he tried.
Of a fascist theocracy. When you have a government that prefers a certain moral code derived from a certain religion, and that moral code turns into legislation to suit one certain religious point of view, and if that code happens to be very, very right-wing, almost toward Attila the Hun...
Well, then you are an anarchist. Every form of civil government is based on some kind of morality, Frank.
Morality in terms of behavior, not in terms of theology.
Well, of course, but...
Unfortunately, stupidity and corruption, they're typically the fall of every great society. It's when they start dismissing the specialists because they know better, just because they've given themselves such a sense of self-entitlement and self-aggrandizement that you can never tell them they're wrong. Stupidity and corruption has been the fall of every great society the moment that they start dismissing people who are actual specialists in their field.
What kind of a shark is it? I don't know. I think it's a macaw. Got a deep throat, Pratt. Yeah, but what kind? What kind of shark? It's a tiger shark. A what?
Just this absolute unshakable faith that they can't be wrong, like some sort of main character syndrome. And it really does lead to the death of intellectual thought and curiosity.
Gentlemen, the officer asked me to tell you that you're overloading that boat.
God. You ain't going, man. What do you care?
They're all gonna die.
Which leads me to my favorite Russian propaganda technique.
The alt left? About the fact they came charged.
But what about the Democrats? But what about Hillary Clinton? The media wants to call into question the credibility and the trustworthiness of this administration. But what about Benghazi? What about the...
Basically the Russian version of...
Whatever you say bounces off me, it's sex to you.
I mean, hell, even Joe Rogan flat out told the truth about
say something, and then the other person says, yeah, but what about the? When someone does a whataboutism, what they're basically saying is, I'm not going to address what you said. I'm going to call you on something to make you address something. So you've stopped talking about stuff, and now you're just trying to win. Mm-hmm. And this is what most people are doing. Mm-hmm. Most people are just trying to win.
One of the worst things about a narcissist is when they have their collapse, when they fall. There are going to be telltale signs to know when this is imminent. However, they are not always visible. You're not going to always be able to pick up on them. The thing is, when a narcissist collapses, so much happens. They have no control over their emotions. So where they previously had control, this has all gone out the window.
To use the parlance of our time.
How do you do, fellow kids?
One of my favorite crash outs is from a movie called Knives Out, where the villain finally has no choice but to collapse in front of everybody because the ruse is off. And it's one of my favorite examples of narcissistic collapse.
Well, in for a penny.
Another great example is when Walter White kills Mike because he has narcissistic collapse and completely crashes out because Mike tells him the truth and defends his ego. It's literally that dangerous. And it's an amazing depiction of it.
All of this falling apart like this is on you. Wow. Wow. Oh, that's some kind of logic right there, Mike. You screw up, get yourself followed by the DEA, and now suddenly this is all my fault. Why don't you walk me through this, Mike? We had a good thing, you stupid son of a bitch. We had Fring. We had a lab. We had everything we needed. It all ran like clockwork. Oh, you could have shut your mouth, cooked, and made as much money as you ever needed. It was perfect. But no, you just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your ego. You just had to be the man. If you'd done your job, known your place, we'd all be fine right now.
Another one of my favorite crash outs is Dennis from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because we all know that he's just a complete narcissistic egomaniac. So when the time comes when he gets rejected, just how badly he crashes out is one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Christy, and it was working. I was manipulating your feeble little brain into doing what I want. And then now it's what you want.
Ew.
Oh, ew, yeah, oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, well, your husband is a liar. How about that, Christy? Yeah, stay with a liar and a deceiver. Tim does not deserve to be the king of the mountaintop. I am the king of the mountaintop. I reign supreme over everyone in this school. I am the golden god of this place. I reign supreme.
Now, Nancy Mace has studied Roy Conn inside and out, and you can tell she's the complete queen of bully, coward, victim. And it's on full display right here.
Every year.
You want to keep going?
Are you going to do any more this year?
Keep going?
Are you going to do it? I'm asking if you're going to have any more town halls this year. Any more that you're going to this year or not?
Crazy.
So I'm on the left.
Absolutely crazy.
I'm absolutely crazy.
Get out of my face.
You're insane.
Goodbye.
You're insane. You're gonna be voted out so fast this year. I can't wait for you to go into the dirt.
I won by so much.
A few moments later.
I felt threatened. I felt harassed. And I will tell you, as someone who's experienced trauma in her life, and a lot of women will understand what I'm talking about, when some guy gets in your face and approaches you in the aggressive manner that he did, and you feel like you're in danger.
I asked a simple question. Nancy Mace was not held in this aisle. She had to clear out of this aisle. I was at least 8 feet away from her at all times. There was no aggression. There was no harassment. Nancy Mace likes to play the victim card, but that's not what happened here. I asked a simple question as a resident of the state of South Carolina, and she couldn't answer it.
You can see it runs right across the spectrum of all of these politicians who just can't be wrong, or they're just going to lose it.
None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this. I'm explaining to you and your audience.
There were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade. President Trump would allow that.
Of course, the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question, Raquel.
Tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself. He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
The lies will never stop. They're too convenient, and they work too well for too many people. You can show side by side the exact footage that shows them lying, and people still won't believe it. Orwell really did call it.
Never arrested. He was never arrested, and nobody knew who he was when he came into the room creating a scene.
A few moments later.
Senator Alex Padilla. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I'm Senator Alex Padilla.
You don't have a judicial warrant. You have a judicial warrant.
Keep going. Back up. Sorry, back up. I'm gonna make this difficult. Sorry. Back up. Just back up. Let's not cause any problems.
We'll let go when you show me the judicial warrant. Where is it? Sir, where is the warrant? I would like to see the warrant. I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let go. I would like to see the warrant, and then I will let us go. Take him in. Take him in. Take him in. Let's go. You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. Sir, you don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens. Say that. You don't have the... I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. Am I asking for a judicial warrant? You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens asking for a judicial warrant.
Mr. Bolter's political affiliations, and David Carlson, once again his roommate and best friend, known him since 4th grade, did say Bolter voted for Trump and that he was a strong supporter.
The Constitution says we won't have a king. I grew up every morning singing songs about how America was a free country and how we should be proud to be an American. And part of being an American is freedom. There will be no kings.
It's like in the great stories, Mr. Furl. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you. That meant something. Even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Furl, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going. Because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? There's some good in this world, Mr. Furl. And it's worth fighting for.
But I'll tell you what. You know what gives me hope? That in the face of all of that adversity, you all are here right now. It would be easy to give up. With the cards stacked against us, it would be simple. They want us to feel powerless and small and weak. And yet, despite all of that, you all showed up here today. And unlike those 6,600 troops in Washington, D.C., no one was ordered to be here. No one was paid to be here. We are here because we want to be here. We are here because we are sending a message that Donald Trump and the GOP may run the House, they may run the Senate, they may run the White House, they may think they have power, but you know what power looks like? It is this. This is power.
This is our fight. The fight for freedom. Freedom of speech, of worship. Freedom from want and fear. This will keep democracy on the march.
Don't tell us everything is fine or stand with us, because this treatment